Welcome to Cinema Surprise, presented by the Penny Bloom Podcast, where every week we celebrate film, and one of us never knows what's coming next. Hello everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of Cinema Surprise by us, the Penny Bloom Podcast. Today, we continue the project with my very first pick, Casablanca. It premiered in New York on November 26th, 1942. It's based on a play by Murray Burnett and Joan Allison, with a screenplay by Howard Koch, Philip G. Epstein, and Julius J. Epstein, and it is directed by Michael Curtis. I'm Colton Robertson. I'm joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
Oh, what up, what up? Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it is always a pleasure to have you, and you know I'm excited today. This was one I've been waiting for. I've been deeply, deeply excited to talk Casablanca for about a year. A year ago is when I watched this movie for the first time. Literally May 2023. So I've watched it 5 times since then.
Okay.
So it's been steady rotation. I like coming back to it. I absolutely adore it, and I've been so excited to show it to you. How are you feeling fresh off your first viewing of Casablanca?
First one, definitely the oldest movie I've ever watched, that's for sure as well. I believe Yojimbo held that title before, I think. But that's 60. Yeah. I think 62 or 3 maybe, or is it just flat?
No, I think it's 60. I think it's straight up 60.
But this one beats it. And doesn't matter that it's before the quality. My argument that I have to suspend a lot of belief sometimes for older movies. No. This is it proved to me that even well before we had computers or even thought of them, that peak cinema can be created. Like this is, you don't need anything other than some people and a camera and think about how to light it and a good story and everything that makes a movie. You can say that this has at the top level. Like, and that's, I understand. I guess like it's not like I was immune or like ignorant to the movie. Like I just knew that this was a certified classic and that this has been considered one of the greatest movies of all time. So kind of like a Godfather going into it. I haven't seen it, but I've heard a lot about it. And but I can comfortably say that I'll take Casablanca over The Godfather like any day. Like that's in a heartbeat. Like there's no real kind of competition there in my mind. But just a much more impactful hitting story. I feel like just romance. I don't know. I usually don't like romance movies. But this one I'm all in. I'm all in on the romance and I love the twists and how it gets spiced up and everything. And first viewing, I'm like, okay, Rick, you're coming off as I'm supposed to like you. You seem like the clear hero here, or like the main character, but every now and then he drops a little line that I'm like, ooh, I don't know. And
he's a jaded man. Once a hero, once a champion of the oppressed, who's been jaded by his heart being broken. As Ilsa puts it later on in the movie, one of my favorite lines of the movie is, "One girl breaks your heart, and you take your revenge on the whole world." This is perhaps my favorite screenplay of all time. I think that it's just bar after bar of classic dialogue, just unbelievably good. And there's an argument that Denis Villeneuve once recently made when he was talking about Dune and how he doesn't love dialogue. He says that dialogue is for plays and for television, and Casablanca, based upon a play, kind of shows you how good dialogue can be.
Yeah. Played like a play at some moments too. I didn't really quite think about that, but a different time in movies, I feel like this is like I kept marveling at that. that I'm like, holy shit, this is 1942. Like this is just straight in camera. There's no question like about what's going on. This is, there's and then
anytime there is a fake background, it's back projection. They are still they are still capturing it in camera though. Like that's like they projected something behind them and we're like, go for it. It's
and then the other layer of it being black and white of like it seems simpler than color, but like to me it probably is way more complex. Like it's
way more difficult.
You don't, the way your eyes are seeing it is not the way the camera is seeing it, and with color, I feel like it's just more natural. It's like what our eyes see, but they have to think of how a red light in their eyes is going to make sense to the black and white camera. I feel like there just has to be more thought put into how they lit the scenes, and I think it's clear. Like every single shot just looks incredible. You can pause the movie almost at any point, and it's like there's a wallpaper, there's another wallpaper. It's like it looks beautiful because they had to think of what was taking up every little square inch of that film. Like it's and just it feels, I don't know, all of that's going on. So like just the technical juices of it are already so incredible and it makes the movie so good. But then like just the story alone, like I see all the inspiration. I see like how this is just like a classic story. Like it's like, it's all the lines like that were said. I don't know how many times I'm like, oh, that's where that comes from. Or like, oh my God, this is just like, it's crazy. It's taken me this long to get here. And
no, but that's the thing is that like I'm never a big like you haven't watched this yet sort of guy, because like when you watch it, and when you watch it, you'll see. Like it's one of those. I remember watching it for the first time, being like, oh, okay, yeah, y'all weren't fucking lying. This is one of the greatest movies that has ever been crafted in the history of film. And I think that there's little doubt of that. Not only, like you said, technically, it is a marvel to look at. I mean, the lighting is just fucking brilliant. The black and white photography is peak. It's up there with any of my other favorite black and white movies. And then performance-wise, like, we have more than two certified legends, but you have Humphrey Bogart as Rick Blaine, and you have Ingrid Bergman as Ilsa Lund, and you are looking at two of the greatest performers of all time in movies. And then you've got a fantastic supporting player like Claude Rains playing Captain Renault, and it's just like, this movie, it's just so fucking good. I love it so much. And then to, connect it back to the story here, this anti-fascist romance, a man gaining his spark back after losing it and losing the girl, but, regaining the girl, but not really regaining the girl, but regaining his spark. And, it's so fucking good. And my favorite detail, set in World War II, facing the Nazis. Nazis weren't defeated until 1945, brother. This movie came out in the middle of World War II. And the line that Laszlo delivers towards the end of the movie, I took it down because he's talking to Humphrey Bogart, and he says, "Welcome back to the fight. This time I know our side will win." And it's not looking back on history knowing that they did eventually win. It's 1942. The fight hasn't been won yet.
They need to win.
Yes. And that's fucking incredible. It's written by a couple of Jewish gentlemen, a few Jewish gentlemen. Like there is a personal fucking, like, the revolutionary spirit in this movie. I appreciate that it's not like, obviously when it comes to the Matrix and Star Wars and all these things, you get more literal war. You get more literal revolutionary action. But this movie displays how the small acts can lend to a greater cause. And I absolutely adore that. I love the way they kind of depict neutrality as nonsensical. They're like, there comes a point when you have to pick a side. you can't be neutral forever, or else you end up lending yourself to the problem. You start tearing down the good guys, like Rick seemingly was about to do for a lot of the movie. Whenever he wouldn't help Ugarte, and he was like, he pins him up against the wall. He's like, "Hey man, I don't stick my neck out for anybody. Like it's me. I do me, and that's that." And there's an element to you that can respect that because he's got a business to run and he's got to do this, but when he has to make the choice, when he has to get back in the fight, he does. And that's the choice you respect more than any other. And that the part of the movie that displays that more than any other for me was when he helps the young couple win 2 bets in a row and get
Black
enough money.
22.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get enough money to pay Captain Renault instead of the woman having to sleep with him, is kind of the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so he helps her out, and watching everybody in the room react to that, watching everybody go like, finally, like, yes, like they could respect him before, but this makes them love him, like this makes them go,
doesn't someone run up to him and like,
yes,
oh, what you did there, like, that, like, and then that Russian behind the bar or something
Sasha
comes out and like, oh man, that was really cool. I mean, there were a lot of things that got me like, ooh, I don't know, Rick, but like that, it did swing me back on his side. Like, okay, you are good at heart then. Like deep down you want to be good.
And Renault calls him out there, he's like, I've always had this idea of you as a, rash sentimentalist. Like you, maybe it's just the romantic in me. I like to believe you killed a man. Like I adore the relationship Renault and Rick have, because it kind of, they're both terrible dudes. I mean, they're not both terrible dudes. One of them's a terrible guy and one of them's a neutral guy. And it's even like the neutral guy befriending this guy and then becoming the hero influences Renault in a way that he couldn't have possibly anticipated at the beginning of the movie, and yeah,
I did like that. It was like a sudden, like, at the very end, that last kind of change of round up the usual suspects. Is that what he said? Kind of, and just, all right, I'll look the other way. You got like this and Rick played it perfectly too at the end there, I don't want to shoot, but like he, the dude pulled his gun first,
just know this gun's pointed directly at your heart, like that's my least vulnerable spot,
the trench coat, the look too, dude, but no, I love what's this? Is it, I don't know this guy's name, but this guy, I just loved every time he came on screen. He was like kind of Rick's, like hype man. But he said, well, he's the kind of man that if I were a woman and I were not around, I should be in love with Rick.
Yeah. Captain Renault. Yeah.
Oh, that is him?
Yeah.
That is, oh, wow.
It's him the whole movie. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he's a funny character, but definitely a bad. Okay, yeah.
Like
his moral code is definitely not
like
what he puts
like,
on.
I've got a gun pointed at your heart, and he's like, "Well, good thing that's my least vulnerable spot." Like he's like, "I don't give a shit."
Under those circumstances, I will sit down.
Yes,
okay.
And he's so fucking funny, and he's one of my favorite performances in this movie. That's why I mentioned him by name.
I thought it was two different people. No, that's crazy.
He is like the journey that character sees over the course of the movie is incredible. Like whenever Laszlo and Ilsa go and sit down in his office at 10 a.m. the next morning, and they're like, well, I should like to speak to Ugarte. And they're like, well, you'll have a tough time doing that. We can't decide if he committed suicide or died trying to escape.
Yeah, dude, that sucks. Yeah.
And Renault was the one who says that, it's like he's the one who's like, yeah, well, we did the thing, so...
That dude, I thought Ugarte, I don't know, he was kind of cool. I thought, I had no idea that he was going to die. I thought he was going to just be kind of a come back and forth kind of player. And, cause like, I had no idea where the movie was going. And then, I'm thinking like, ooh, what a cool little operation Rick's got set up here. He's got, he seems that he's got everything that he'd ever want, but he doesn't drink, so it's like, just everything about it is so perfect for like just a movie character. And I was just like, he was already just so immediately cool that I was in, but I was trying to figure out like, what his angle was or what like
is.
you know.
Yeah, and he tells you, he's like, it's me. Like I don't fuck with that side, I don't fuck with this side. And you know, it was his idealism that led him to finding Ilsa, and it was what led him to having to part with Ilsa because he was wanted by the Nazis, so he finds a way to be neutral from there on. And it's a really cool implied history they have with Rick Blaine. Like, he can't return to America. Not allowed to. Why? Never specified, but he can't.
What did he do? What did he do? You know? Is it implied he did something, or that, like, he...
Like, no, yeah, I mean, it's implied he did something. Like, he's not legally allowed to return to America.
So he was born American...
Yeah,
and then deported, exiled. Yeah. You know,
my money. The way that I like to look at it, because we hear he ran guns for Ethiopia, which was Ethiopia versus Italy when Italy was trying to conquer, and they were the underdogs, and that was in like 1936, I think. Then we hear him say that he fought in the Spanish Revolution, which you most recently would have heard about that in Oppenheimer. Whenever they're like, would you like to send money to the Spanish front? You know, like, that's that fight, that they're talking about. And so apparently Rick Blaine fought in that war. He fought in that fight against, the fascists, and he was on the revolutionary side.
Get him out of here.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things. And I think there's also a really good chance he deserted. Like, he sees what America is doing in different parts of the world and decided to desert. And, like, that's one of my, like, I like that headcanon. I like the idea that he left. Like, it was not like he got kicked out, but that he left, and because of the nature of his service and his desertion, he's not allowed back,
Or what's that word? The new word that I learned today it's like a imaginary. MacGuffin? Yes. It could just be one of the, his own created MacGuffin. He just tells people, I can't return to America. Fuck that place. That's really what it is. Maybe it's just like, I'm never going back there. Like, I can never live there.
It could be. No, I mean, like, it was the Nazi who says it's like in his file.
Oh, okay. So it is, okay, so it's more legit then.
It's like he's not allowed back. But that,
or he's just that well known.
Yeah,
they were that pissed. They had to twist it. To be it, it's no, you're not allowed back. No.
You're not. You can't quit. You're fired. Some shit like that.
But he walked out of the Oval Office saying, "I quit as an American," and they said, "No, actually, you're fired." And I think
get the fuck out of here.
At least that's my headcanon for that's that.
Funny.
But
that's funny. No, so 100%. Rick Blaine he's definitely my favorite. I mean, like. I'm split on my favorite character of the movie as far as the journey one character sees or the righteous good that Victor Laszlo has.
I gave him the line. I feel like he's dope. Like, he was almost my character too. Mm-hmm. So, like, I mean, it's crazy that, like, Rick, just the amount of screen time he has versus Laszlo. Like, I mean, that difference. But, I mean, I think, I don't know, you brought up a Laszlo line. I felt like it was, I don't think it's the same conversation, but I don't know why I felt like there was some connection. But he said, you might as well question why we breathe. If we stay breathing, if we stay
stop breathing.
Stop. Yeah. The cursive is getting me. I chose a nice Casablanca font for the Excel sheet, but anyway, if we stop breathing, we'll die. If we stop fighting our enemies, the world will die. And I was just like, okay, like coming, just like he's coming in with the actual moral code that I'm about. So,
and it's not the same conversation, but that's the conversation whenever. You remember when he shows up to the bar and he's got like a cut in his hand and he's like wrapping himself up. It's during that. He's like, he's like, why do you keep sticking your neck out? Like, why do you keep doing this? And he's like, why do you fight? And he's like, well, you might as well ask me why I breathe, and it's just he's such a brilliant revolutionary character that I absolutely adore. And I appreciate, one of the main influences that I find myself thinking of that this movie has later in a, not as grandiose of a scale or massive of stakes, but past lives, obviously. I feel like that's the I feel like that's the other one. Victor Laszlo is kind of representing the John Magaro character, and Humphrey Bogart represents the TOU character, and it's and kind of seeing them. There was a moment early on whenever Rick welcomes them to the bar, and Victor Laszlo's standing behind Ilsa, and they're just talking, and since it was one of my fourth or fifth time watching this movie, I paid attention to him a lot more because I knew I've watched Past Lives. I knew I've watched that sort of thing, and I was like, what's the third guy thinking? What's the third person thing? And his eyes are like flicking back and forth between them, kind of like, okay, yeah, like there's something here. And he's definitely like, and he doesn't confront him about it, but he's like, hey, I get it, but I trust Ilsa, and I don't think anything's going to happen there. So, maybe we figure this thing out. I could tell there was a history, and he was like, but I love my lady. She loves me.
That was the only thing that I think I was like, no, Ilsa, like, why? And it was whenever, like, wasn't it to Laszlo? Like, when Laszlo was like, hey, I understand. Like, when I was in the concentration camp, for one, holy shit, and then he's like, I understand you get you get lonely. Like, I get that. Like, do you have anything to tell me? No. Like, and I was like, oh, come on. Like, why not come clean to Laszlo there? Like, what, why have to keep Rick a secret, to Laszlo? Like, I felt like,
no, I get what you're saying. And I tend to look at that moment as more of a, like, she's trying her best to put it behind her. Like, she's trying her best to not even acknowledge that it happened, because then the feelings creep back in, and she goes to Rick's place, and she's like, I've always loved you, and I wish I didn't, and, and I get what you're saying. Like, for the sake of transparency, I would have appreciated it. But
I guess it's different that, like, it wasn't revealed quite yet, I don't think, that she believed that Laszlo was dead. I think that's revealed. I think that's after. Like, whenever it's revealed that she thought that Laszlo was dead for that time, because she got like didn't she?
Yeah, she got like a courier message that said that he had died.
But that conversation that she's having with Laszlo there is before that happens in the movie. So maybe just like for the audience's sake, like it makes kind of more sense to still lie about it a little bit. But like now knowing that, like, it's even less of like it's like you're lonely, sure, but like I also thought you were dead. It's like I also got an order that you were dead, and like so it's like I don't know.
How much better is that though?
Yeah.
Like
I guess. I don't know. I don't know.
But that's my thing, is that like I don't hold like
that was just the one thing. That was, I mean, literally, that was it. It was the only, like, oh man, why didn't you just tell him there? Like, come clean, and then you're past it, and it's all. And I don't know, but
I don't think it's him. I don't think it's her lying to him as much as it is her lying to herself. Like, she's trying to convince herself it's not worth telling him. I mean, like, because he even says something to Rick later on about it. Like, you sound like a man who's trying to convince himself of something he doesn't believe in, and I think he knows that sound because he just heard it from his wife, like he knows what that sounds like. And I think that I really, really appreciate the love triangle thing going on here. And it is one of those ones where it is a little complicated, and it is, it can get muddied in a, modern context. 2024, if a character goes, you'll need to think for the both of us, Rick, I don't love it. But 1942, it's fine. And I think it works for the movie.
Yeah, him having to be like, I did the thinking. You asked me to do the thinking. I did it. And here
I did it, toots.
This is what we're doing. Yeah, kid. Yeah. Why kid?
This is another thing you'll have to get used to as you watch older movies. The dudes are always much older than the women. That is a normal fact of the movies.
But to nickname it, like to like call it out. You know, I don't know. That is just to that be her nickname. I don't know. It is just interesting. I don't know. It just didn't feel like a babe or like a, I don't know, a toots. You know, I felt like is that the stereotypical 42 babe at the time? Is it toots? Maybe it is just kid. I don't know.
No, yeah.
Maybe that
I mean,
is...
like they would have known each other when she was in her early 20s, in theory. And I mean, like, if he was late 30s,
yeah,
like it's the thing is that like I don't think it's a situation where she was like 14 or anything. You know, I think it's she was a grown adult who was, you know, married and. You know,
yeah, I don't think there's a literal age problem. Like it's just a weird nickname to choose, like to go with that as your, because he repeat, like that's the one he goes back to. You know, that's
just looking at you, kid.
But I don't. Maybe it is just.
Was that another one of those lines where you were like, "Oh, that's where that comes from"? Here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I don't know how many times it was. Like, not every single time it was like a holy fuck, but it was just like, oh my god, oh my, like, everything was just clicking. Like, it was like, oh, I'm seeing the movie.
Like gin joints and all the towns and all the
that one was nice to get to. Yeah, and this is the start of a very great, you know, beautiful, yeah. That one,
Louis. I think this is the start of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, and I mean, it just made sense while I was watching. That was just a thing. Every time I ever, you know, I guess I paused a couple of times to text because I was very, very excited and wanted to break stuff down. And also, the only confusing part was the MacGuffin, I guess, for me, of the travel papers. And because I knew that, I guess, travel papers, I just figured like very important secretive document that happened to have 2 Germans killed that, you know, the dude came in and gave to Rick and was like, hey, hide these. Like, so I didn't really put much thought into like what the documents were themselves. I just like knew the idea of the movie that they were important and need to be hidden. Yeah. And then like whenever it became important to like, no, we need the documents now. I'm like, oh wait a minute. Like what actually are they? And then like, I didn't even think it was a MacGuffin at first. I thought like it was just, that's actually what MacGuffin. But thank you. I would have kept going on. But I actually thought it was like a legitimate thing that was like in history. Like it was that's how believable I guess it is.
No, yeah. That's the other thing is that like, you know, how likely is it that Nazi Germany just like has papers that's like, yeah, actually, yeah, if you have this, you can fly through unabashed. It's fine. You know, like it's one of those things where like I really appreciate that being the, you know, a MacGuffin of the movie. It's a nice little fantasy object that is extremely important.
Yeah. But it makes like the idea actually clicks.
It tracks.
Like
yeah,
it
tracks completely.
It's what they're trying to do. I mean, if they had full control, yeah, that's probably how it would be. Like
especially if Casablanca, the flight from Casablanca is to America, they would have to fly directly over Europe, which is mostly occupied by Nazis. So it's one of those things where like if you wanted to travel through that airspace and it was the only way to America, you need these transit papers. At least the most likely way to survive that trip anyway. And I liked the transit papers thing. I love Sam. Love Sam. My boy
real
Sam.
One. Oh,
yeah, what a real motherfucker.
And like, no, I actually forgot how to play that. No, I'm actually a little rusty on that. Actually, you know, he's like, oh, come on. He's like, come, just don't. Yeah, another little inspiration there. A little La La Land story-esque, you know, wrong.
I felt like there was a little bit of a motif with the music there that carried through to La La Land.
Yeah, and the whole wrong or right person, wrong time, you know, sort of thing. You know, I feel like there's some inspiration there, and that I feel like maybe they took just that piano part from this and then made it their
barely
own.
Changed
like
it.
yeah, because it's not the whole time. It is just for like three or four notes, and then that's it. And then it goes into its own thing. But
well, there's also a line in La La Land where they literally, like, on the lot where Emma Stone's character works, she goes, "You see those windows? Those are the windows Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman looked out of in Casablanca."
Okay.
On Emma Stone's wall, there's a giant painting of Ingrid Bergman if you go back and watch La La Land.
Wow.
Okay. Definitely an inspiration for that movie. And then, not to mention that Damien Chazelle went on to make Babylon, which was just about the golden age of Hollywood and the transition from silent films to talkies and then progressing into later years and just kind of a history of film. But it's very clearly a
Sebastian,
love for old cinema.
A jazz club owner, or that's his whole thing.
Yes.
Okay. It makes sense. Casablanca, the root, a very root. There's not many things. What inspired Casablanca other than the play? I guess that's what. I don't know.
Does it take its influence from?
How many other movies are there at this time? Like, how, is it actually very scarce to get a movie just in general, or are they actually common? It's just that the good ones are
pretty common. This was, common enough that this was an Oscar winner. This won Best Picture. So movies couldn't have been so scarce that they were like, well, we can't have an award show, they need if they're going to have an award series, there's going to be enough movies. Talkies started in 1927.
Okay, so we've been cooking.
So it'd been 15 years since Talkies had started, and then silent films had been going for 20 plus years at that point.
Oh, so okay. My timeline's off a little bit then.
Yeah.
Now that reframes it a lot better. This feels, oh man, I don't know. It'd be nice. It'd be so nice to return to a filmmaking era kind of like this, but somehow have the technology that we have today. Like, to have the brains of the people who make the movies back then, but give them the volume, give them VFX if they want it. I feel like if you went to the creators of Casablanca and just time traveled the technology back to 1942, I bet they don't really change a lot of the movie at all. I bet they're like, well, what's the point? They're like, why would I need to create something fake whenever
I've built the stage?
Yeah, it's
here.
It's right here.
The stagecraft is incredible. I love the setup of Rick's Cafe. I think it's a gorgeous set. And I love that this movie doesn't spend time at a lot of different places. It is Rick's Cafe downstairs, Rick's office, Rick's bedroom, Laszlo's bedroom, Captain Renault's office, and Signor Ferrari's blue parrot across the street.
Okay, true.
Yeah, no, so there's a few locations, but we return to the same place a lot. We spend the first 35 minutes in Rick's Cafe. We spend a huge chunk of this movie at the beginning in Rick's Cafe. So it's one of those things where you go back and you give them that sort of technology. Maybe we get a flashback to a war scene where Humphrey Bogart was in the shit. It's that sort of stuff where what they have to work with, they're not going to fuck with, but that is a fun little, maybe you see Humphrey Bogart fighting in the Spanish Civil War. You see him running guns to Ethiopia. It would be interesting. No, and but that's the thing too, is that I don't think people have gotten less creative. I think the technology's just gotten easier for them to do these sorts of things. I actually wish that we could make modern filmmakers use these sorts of sensibilities. I appreciate, and there's certain situations where no, I don't wish that. I wouldn't want a big epic sci-fi action flick to be directed like it was made in 1942. That's designed for today. But I keep coming back to it because it's a good example. But La La Land, Past Lives, these things, they don't use that shit. You know, like those are modern movies that are made the same way this was, just with the more modern touch and sensibility.
Yeah, like the Planetary, when they have their kiss and they just float for a second and it gets beautiful and then it's like, oh, and then we're back to reality. You know, like that's boom. I bet like
that's a perfect example of what sort of that sensibility would lend itself to in a modern context. And
but goddamn, for 1942, like, to see this and to have World War II going on as well. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Like that's just a hard, incredible, like I cannot put myself really in that mind. I don't know. I feel like we would need, like, I don't know. Are we due for the modern equivalent for a Casablanca right now?
I mean,
you know, did we get
I'd
one?
I'd invite that. That's the thing, though, is that like there's a sensibility about who the villain is in World War II. You know who the fucking bad guy is. Mm-hmm. It's Nazi Germany. Mm-hmm. Every conflict kind of going on the world right now is a little too. There are too many people who don't agree on the bad guy.
It's not clear.
There is a bad guy, and it is clear, but some of them don't think that way.
It's not just one name. I mean, well,
it's not the Nazis.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just there's a badge they wore. There's a dude they honor. You know, I mean, it was and fuck. Do I wish that there was that? No. So like war is just all bad, but man, it'd be nice to have a common enemy. But
even beyond that, I wish filmmakers and studios had the guts to make a movie like this.
That's true.
You know, that's something that's just not going to happen now. This is because we don't have a Nazi Germany, universally considered Nazi Germany. I want to make that as clear as I can. But it's so like it is one of those things where now the closest thing we've kind of gotten to this in a modern context, kind of funny enough, is the Grand Budapest Hotel. And it was because it was set in a fantasy Europe, and it was set in a fantasy country, and the villains were fantasy Nazis. And, you know, like it was, that was kind of, that's, if you're going to do something like this today, that's kind of what you're going to do. Now, you know, the reason it was like that is because Wes Anderson's going to Wes Anderson, but like, if it was going to be a modern context, I imagine Wes Anderson would have done a similar thing. I don't think he would have, you know, been
or
like here,
a Monkey Man in the sense where you have to disguise it as like an action movie, you know, like it's no, look at this crazy action movie.
Monkey Man's actually not a terrible comparison, you know, like it's obviously not a romance, but it's a really good example of someone pulling off what we're talking about in a modern context without being like, and this is the Hindu Nationalist Party, you know, like, no, they're the Sovereign Party, and that's, you know, like, we'll call that good.
We know.
You know? And
it's like we got it. Yeah, it's and that's I do like those. That's another whole just reason I like film and movie in general. It is just a very good capture of what people were thinking at the time. And even if it is the wrong take, even if you get some crazy motherfucker that somehow got a movie made through the studios and it is the wrong take, at least it's there. And like, at least like you can watch it and know it's the wrong take. I don't know.
Oh, Jesus.
And like, so
this got made, huh?
Yeah.
Like this was okay enough to get made at the time.
I don't know of how many movies. Yeah. Did those exist? Can you like
Birth of a Nation?
I've never seen it.
I haven't either, and I never will. It's basically a KKK propaganda film.
When did it come out?
I mean, 20s. It's a silent film.
Why is there a 2016?
I think that they adapted
that's
to a modern context.
Okay, I'm assuming not pro KKK there. If there are many black, the cast looks very black there. So okay, very different. But whoa, okay, I didn't know. I guess that'd be an example there, a clear one. So
and then I mean, like there were works by
I guess
there was
like
a filmmaker
Nazi Germany make
yes
movies?
they made propaganda
Oh
films.
wow.
And, I'm trying to remember the name of the Nazi filmmaker who was the most famous, because I mean, like, it's a name that you'll likely recognize because he was, I mean, a
Harvey
huge...
Weinstein. But
no, I'm pretty sure.
Not. Wow. I guess I never really thought about
to make
that.
Assumptions here, but Harvey Weinstein, I have to guess, is probably Jewish.
Oh yeah, I guess that's quite opposite. I was going just more a guy that made movies that I know has done some.
I see.
Some not good things, but yeah, no, oh my god, that's how I did not clock those two or put those two together. But yeah, no, Joseph Goebbels, god dang it, is that it? I hope
yes.
not. Goebbels,
yes.
Why Joseph? Come on,
Joseph Goebbels.
Oh god, and I guess also Armour Brecker and Richard Strauss. I've heard Richard Strauss. That sounds kind of familiar, which I don't know why, but man,
it was Joseph Goebbels. That was the one I was thinking of.
We'll go with Joseph. That's
Joseph.
Joseph
Goebbels.
But no, this is made by the right people, and it's just and it's nice that every kind of culture. I don't know, not every culture was represented here, but it felt like his saloon was kind of like a melting pot, and it was just like everyone has to get to Casablanca to get to America, so it's like, this is a stop along the way, and that was
really,
really cool.
There's a very prominent black character.
Yeah, Sam.
In 1942.
Wow, I guess I didn't think of, wow, and he's...
That's a pretty...
Yeah, and... I guess they're a little demanding, like sometimes,
it's,
like whenever they're like, but it's like play that because they're mad of their relationship stuff, so it's like not at him, but it also feels a little bit directed towards him.
There's only one part that feels a little funny to me, and it's when it's whenever they're in France and the Nazis are moving, or the Gestapo is moving in, and they're going to be there the next day, and that bar owner is like giving away all the champagne because he'd rather it be given away for free before the Nazis drink it, so Sam goes like, this really does take the sting out of being occupied, doesn't it? And he goes, you said it, bud. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, it was such a corny backstory sort of thing that I thought was very, very funny, where I was like, it was one of those things where I was just kind of like, that felt a little weird, but it is what it is. That kind of does take the sting out of being occupied, doesn't it, sir? Yeah.
Man.
I mean, there was even an allusion to the fact that Signor Ferrari was going to sell Sam.
Really? Don't think I clocked that. Oh, wow.
At the beginning of the film, whenever he's like, are you selling this place? He's like, no. Well, are you selling Sam? And he's like, I don't trade in human beings. And he's like,
that's what he meant. Oh,
yeah.
I thought it was just like to hire him to like to take him and just as his position or something.
Because he also says, that's a shame because that's Casablanca's like #1 export is people. Like it's like so there's a side that Rick is not involved in, that Signor Ferrari, and I appreciate, they're like, we're just gonna have an Italian mobster in the middle of Casablanca. That's kind of fucking hilarious.
Okay, so wow, it is like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, a lot of the bad people, I guess, are portrayed as like funny and whimsical, and like because like the I always forget his name. Is it just Captain
Renault?
Renault, yeah. He seemed like a very joyful guy and nice at heart, but not quite. And then Ferrari as well. I guess he's not. He never really seems. He always swats a fly at the end, like whenever he goes off screen. Is like, okay, he's just a killer. I don't know, like it's okay. I guess makes sense.
That's the thing too, is that I'm gleaming that from that scene, because they also do cut to, Rick going up to Sam and being like, hey, you want to go work for Signor Ferrari? And he's like, no, I'm happy where I'm at. And he's like, he'll pay you twice as much as I do. And he goes, I don't have time to spend the money I make here. And it's one of the, like, it's like, oh, okay. So maybe it's unclear, but I kind of take it to be sort of a lawless land. And the law is corrupt, as Captain Renault makes clear. He's like, I'm a mere poor corrupt official.
There's vultures everywhere. Look out for these vultures. As the whoever that guy is, I don't know, just stealing the wallets over and over, saying, "Look out for the vultures." And then the one dude who's like, he bumps into him and he like does the check. He's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good.
The guy who's like a waiter and he's also for the cause there. Yeah, like I love that guy too. And I love that he's the one who Rick is like comfortable being like, hey, come up here, turn off this light here. And then he comes upstairs and Ilsa's there and he's like, all right, take her home. This, like that's the guy he trusts with that sort of thing. Like, and I think that's cool. But no, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff about this movie I love, and we've touched on the romance a bit, but I feel like we haven't really keyed in on it. I think that Ilsa and Rick's relationship is obviously the foundation of this movie, and I believe that I don't think there's ever been. I go to two examples, and I texted you this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to know how to photograph someone and make them look like the most beautiful person alive, Ingrid Bergman in Casablanca and Kate Winslet in the Titanic. I think that those two, they've got it down fucking pat. Probably, like semi-influence on Titanic, I would imagine as well. But there's, I love that Humphrey Bogart also comes off as a deeply attractive man, like I find him extremely attractive.
Oh yeah,
and he's not conventionally hot. Like Humphrey Bogart is a interesting and unique looking man. Ingrid Bergman is conventionally beautiful. Mm-hmm. Like there's very little about her that if you were like, all right, what is the pinnacle of the Western idea of beauty? It'd be like, okay, Ingrid Bergman. Humphrey Bogart's not that guy. He's not that guy, pal, but he's still fucking hot in this movie for some reason. And it's that presence that Humphrey Bogart brings to the role. Which is why when it came to choosing a performance, I had a really tough time. Because Humphrey Bogart as Rick Blaine, there's literally not another motherfucker who could have been Rick Blaine. Like Humphrey Bogart is that guy, like that is why that character is as cool as he is. But ultimately I went Ingrid Bergman. As Ilsa, I think that she is just unbelievably good, and she was definitely another character that I tried to pay a little more attention to on this most recent watch, and there's this moment where I love, after the flashback sequence, after, Rick's told Sam, like, she'll come back, she'll be back tonight, da-da-da-da, and Sam's like, she's not coming back, let's go, let's get out of here. When she, like, steps in the door frame, and she's, like, lit up,
it's my shot right there.
Oh, dude, it's fucking gorgeous.
That's my shot. There's infinitely many shots. Like, pick any shot you want in the movie. But for some reason, this was just like, we're going to light her up. Like, it was the most kind of play. Like, it's like,
she lit up the room. It was unnatural lighting.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's wonderful.
I don't know. And it was just for a split second, too. It was quick, brief.
She walks in, and it, like, shimmers, and then
you're
the
on
light
her
returns
face.
to what,
and
dude.
then it's just, look at her. Like,
oh, it's fucking brilliant. It's fucking brilliant. And I like to think that's kind of how, like, he's seeing her for a split second, and then he, like, reminds himself of what happened, and it goes back to reality and stuff. But it's whenever she, like, sits down with him, and they're going back and forth, and obviously he's extremely bitter. And she had her reasons, but she's not comfortable telling him about them, and, so on and so forth. But there's this moment, like, when he gets his last word in, and they linger on Ingrid Bergman's face for a second, and she's like, the combinations of emotions she is able to portray with her face in that moment, there's like a seething anger is kind of what primed to the surface for me, where she was like, and then she just gets up and leaves, and like it was so,
like kind of like
dude,
like
it was so good.
Oh yeah,
you coward, as she calls him later on.
Because his last word, I think, is like, how many other men, other than him, or whatever. Like, how
many were there in between,
Yeah,
like,
I bet there were many.
Go straight to him, or
and at that time,
he says, like, I suppose a woman like you wouldn't tell, or whatever.
Yeah, at that time, I didn't even know that she thought Laszlo was dead. But like whenever Rick says this, I'm like, oh, dude, come on, Rick. I'm like, come on now, boy. Like, come on, dude. Like, I guess for leaving, that's what you could be mad for, is the initial abandonment with no explanation. I guess there was a card, What did the card say? It was just it was that I can't explain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just know that I love you,
So
and
it's just,
I'm sorry, basically.
yeah, it's just he didn't know. You know, you don't know until you know. And I think I learned that in just how good this movie is. I knew a kind of it was, but now that I just watched it, now I'm in the know. And now it just makes sense. Everything is just clear. But also, Rick, you know, that's why he is pissed. And then whenever he learns and he does the thinking for all of them, you know, because he's the man and he should. At least the plan he came up with was pretty cool, and it worked out. And it was
and it
awesome
makes him the good
end.
guy, and it gives Ilsa what she needs, you know, whether, you know, it's for him to decide or not. But, you know, it is like it's one of those things where I mean, he can't go back to the States. That's already been made clear. He can't take these letters of transit anyway. It wouldn't make sense. So I appreciate that Rick is man enough to recognize that he's not the hero of this story. You know, he's the hero of this part of the story, but Laszlo's the guy that needs to get there. Mm-hmm. He needs to go. And the resolution thereafter where, you know, Renault's like he's like, I suppose I'll need a letter of transit, you know, this doesn't change anything that you're coming with me, you know, you still owe me 10,000, you know, and then he's like, I suppose that we are going to be in for a wild ride. And he's like, you know, like, you're coming with me. You're going to go join the fight, basically. It seems like he's like leaving and going to go fight Nazis is essentially the idea I'm getting from the end.
That's my headcanon.
Yeah, he is.
I don't know.
He's regained his zest for the anti-fascist cause.
You know, on the phone. That's got to feel good. You know, I don't know. And that guy was
a fucking Nazi.
Yeah.
Man. Like, yeah, kill his ass.
That's got to feel good, you know, and he waited until, like, he pulled the gun. Rick waited. Gave him every chance the dude could to let him walk away. Nope. Oh, well, I have to kill you? Okay. Oops. Won't feel too bad about that one. But, yeah, there's no, I wish maybe is that the only gripe I have? Not enough Nazi killing. If I could just gotten some more Nazis dead, maybe it makes this an actual 10 that I can give critically. You know, I don't know. But that I did also tell you that, like, this is the first ever script or first ever. Like, I want to have, like, a script of this movie.
I want to read it.
I've never had that urge ever for a movie. There were just so many lines that I'm like...
Oh, my God. I think I took down something like 25 quotes last night. So, here, I'll run through them. Whenever the General Strasser, I think is his name, hands him, like, his file, and he's, like, looking through, he goes, are my eyes really brown? You know, like, I love that little line.
Oh. Yeah, that's what he keys in on. Yeah,
I took down, Rick is the kind of man, if I were a woman and I were not around, I should be in love with Rick. I was like, okay, Captain Renault, maybe you're just in love with Rick. Mm-hmm. And then next I have, we read that you were killed 5 different times in 5 different places. And Laszlo says, as you see, it was true every single time. I'm like, that's a fucking bar.
Damn.
Like, I can't see
Laszlo
that, but that's dope
did
as fuck.
Come in with the hard hitters. Yeah.
Oh, dude. There's whenever Rick and Laszlo officially meet, and, you know, he's like, Rick, you're very famous around these parts, and he's like, oh, well, you're famous everywhere, and he's like, I like what you've done. He's like, I respect, you've done a really good job, and he's like, with what? Your work? He goes, oh, well, I try, and he goes, we all try, you succeed. I liked that line.
Wow, that's nice.
One of my favorite lines is whenever they're sitting at that table, Renault joins them. He's agreed to have a drink, and then he goes, I remember everything about that day. The Germans wore gray, you wore blue. That's a strong one. Whenever he's sitting there sulking in the dark, he goes, it's December 1941 in Casablanca. What time is it in New York? And Sam goes, my watch stopped. And he goes, I bet they're asleep in New York. I bet they're asleep all over America. And that leads straight into the most iconic quote of the movie, where it's of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world. Like, that's the line that comes directly before. And I was like, It's December 1941 in Casablanca. What time is it in New York? Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? That's awesome. I don't know what you mean, but that rocks.
Yeah. Is that just him longing for home? I don't know. Is he like, if I was home, I'd be asleep right now? Or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, it's December. Like, do my problems here, is what we're going through here affecting people all over the world, is kind of what I kind of glean from it. Then during the flashback, he's got his arm, he's got the champagne in his hand, and he's pouring a glass for him and Ilsa, and he goes, "Who are you really? And where were you before? What did you do? And what did you think?"
No questions.
We said no questions. Here's looking at you, kid. Love that. With the whole world crumbling, we picked a pretty bad time to fall in love. It's a pretty good one.
Damn.
The parallel of, will I see you tonight? Well, I never planned that far ahead. And then he goes, "What do you think? Can we get married?" during that flashback, and she goes, "That's too far ahead to plan."
That's where it came from, man. Come on.
Dude, it's too
a second watch
good.
Is going to be great.
It's
my
so
God.
good.
A second watch.
It's infinitely rewatchable. I could watch this over and over and over. It would be a miracle to get you out of Casablanca, and the Germans have outlawed miracles. That's a good one. The one of the funnier ones is when that German waiter sits down with the German couple who's moving to America. They're leaving for America on the last plane, and they're like, "We're speaking nothing but English now. It's going great." What watch? 10 watch. Such much. And it's like, and then he's like, "You two will do great." I
was like, what? I was like, wait, did I miss something, or are they just supposed to be portrayed as just like?
He's asking, "What time is it?" She's going, 10 o'clock. And he's going, "Thank you." But he goes, "What watch?" She goes, 10 watch. And he goes, "Such much." Wow. Thank you so much is kind of what I think he's going with.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah. Okay. I guess I was like, well, that was just so dumb that they have to just be portraying them as like, yeah, you'll do well in America. They're
trying their best, but they don't know it all nearly well enough. Then the next one, when that young lady approaches Rick, like, "Hey, should I trust Captain Renault?" essentially. She goes, "What kind of man is Captain Renault?" And he goes, "Like any other man, only more so." I liked that one. One woman has hurt you, and you take your revenge on the rest of the world. You're a coward and a weakling. That's strong. I took down, "You might as well question why we breathe. If we stop breathing, we die. If we stop fighting our enemies, the world dies." And then the last quote I took down was, "Welcome back to the fight. This time I know our side will win." And
that's nice.
That one, I can't tell you how many times I think this movie made me cry. I mean, it makes me cry every time I watch it, and several times last night.
Yeah. 3-4 times. So good. Good ones too. A lot of little tear ups. I feel for just like either way.
There's just so much, and on rewatch, it's one of those rare ones where on rewatch there's even more emotion.
That'd probably be true.
You do know where their longing looks come from, and when they lock eyes for the first time. Whenever he walks up to Sam and he's like, "I told you never to play." And then he like looks up and sees Ilsa, and like her eyes fill up with tears, and then they pull up on him, and like it's fucking strong, dude.
Yeah,
but
this one is.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
my favorite.
Knew I was going to rewatch it, I guess. Anyways, but like now
it's a must. You have to watch this movie more than once, and not because you're not understanding everything, but because there's even more to glean from it. There's even more emotion to pull, and that's rare. Usually one time is the most you'll ever feel a movie.
To accomplish, like, you want a movie to be one and done and enough in that one sitting that it's good enough. But
this is more than enough of that.
But like it would be nice if you can get people back in the seats again and over and over. And this is kind of that perfect balance between where it's like they're not trying for the rewatchability aspect, but just in the nature of the story, it's like, oh, I want to know now that I know. It's
timeless too. It's got the anti-fascism, it's got the romance, and it's got high tension, it's got drama, it's funny, I mean, like, my favorite scene of the movie is whenever it's Laszlo and Rick upstairs talking in his office, and then they hear the Germans start singing their Nazi propaganda song downstairs. And, I mean, we get this beautiful shot of Laszlo and Rick at the top of the stairs, like, seething. Like, they are both so fucking mad that this is happening. And Laszlo can't contain himself. Laszlo walks downstairs. He goes straight to the band. I love watching Ilsa watch Laszlo. It's like, these are the moments that you realize why Ilsa loves Laszlo and what she sees in him that she doesn't see in Rick. And watching her watch him march over there, angry as hell, and then smile when he tells them, you know, play La Marseillaise. And,
boom.
The band looks at Rick, and Rick goes, and that was the moment I was like, fuck yeah,
Ooh,
you know,
okay,
like,
that is
yes!
hard. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Rick's like, yeah, go for it. Like, he's done this whole thing, the whole movie about no politics in my bar, no politics in my cafe.
Yeah.
Don't do that here. And then they ask for his permission, and he's like, yeah, we gotta get these Nazi motherfuckers out of here. You know, let's get them up out of here. And so, they start singing, the crowd starts singing, it dwarfs the sound of the Nazi singing, and just, this moment made me fucking, like, I was crying, because it's just a nice little reminder that the power of the people is insurmountable, you know, like, the imperial control is unnatural, they don't want them here, and watching them fight back in their own little way, the woman that we see kind of be a nuisance throughout the movie, like crying, tearing up as she's singing along with it, and then the guitar player playing along with them, and it's just like everybody in the bar except for the Nazis came together for this moment. And even Renault was kind of like, he didn't sing, but he was like he at the beginning of the movie he tells Strasser, you know, he goes where the winds blow him, and he's like, well, what if the wind blows the other direction? And he goes, well, surely the Nazis won't admit that's a possibility, you know, like, and so he feels the wind change during that scene, and he's like, you know what, it's RRR, with, like, the power of a song is more powerful than a gun, the power of a song is more powerful than a gun sometimes, and it just inspired, and it was so hopeful, and in the face of fascistic terror, they're singing, you know, and I think I love it, so... Everything about that scene kind of encompasses why I love the movie. It shows you why you need to love Rick, why you need to love Victor, why you need to love Ilsa, and why you need to hate the Nazis. And I think that's what makes this movie great. So, yeah, I love that scene.
Yeah, I don't know. It is a nice, because Rick, kind of this anti-hero, not clearly like the good guy. Like, he's not a pure good soul. But you can see that even him, a guy who claims to be neutral, is like so clearly on the opposite side of. And it's sad that this is like a timeless story. Like, it's sad that we have to say that this is a timeless story.
Right.
That since 1942 and now it is still making sense, and it is still hitting the way, maybe not as impactful. I'd say this is much more impactful in the year 1942.
Hard to imagine watching this in 1942.
Yeah, so I don't want to claim that, but it is definitely still impactful. It has not lost its impact, that's for sure. And it's kind of a sad realization, but it, you know, it is nice to have those scenes, that it is the people, that it is that is how it starts, and then the end is like, no, we can't be together, you have to be with him so that he can go on. And, you know, that's another weird aspect, is that, like, he needs you, so you need to be with him, you know, like, because he needs to succeed. So it's like,
he was even willing to throw away his whole fucking thing for her. Like, when he was talking to Rick, and he's like, I'm a man just like anybody else, like, I would in a heartbeat give it all up for her, you know? Yeah. And he's like, well, okay, that makes it clear what I need to do here. Fuck. You know, I'm the only one thinking now. Okay. Yeah. Good.
I guess, and that's, I don't know, that is, if the movie's made today, you know, maybe a change I would like would just be that maybe he, I don't know, not so man, or just so, all right, you do the thinking, Rick, and you make the decision. Maybe it is just an ultimatum. No, I mean, maybe it is like, I don't know what to do. You know, like, I am so stuck. I'm going back and forth. Like, if you want to go, like, stay with me, then stay with, I don't know, maybe just like Have her have some
I mean,
choice.
Ilsa have a little
like,
bit more of an agency to her would be
Yeah.
nice. But I do appreciate that within the context of this story, that it is like she is so caught up in a whirlwind of emotions. It's not like she doesn't love Victor Laszlo. She does love Victor Laszlo. She also loves Rick Blaine. The person she can confidently talk to about both things is the man who's not her husband. So like she doesn't want to tell her husband like, hey, I think I'm still in love with this man I met while I thought you were dead. You know, like that makes sense. You know, it's, and so that's the thing, is that while it's complicated, it's deeply human, you know, like it is one of those things where in a modern context, yes, Ilsa Lund would probably have a degree more of agency. She probably wouldn't be weeping into Rick's arms going, you must think for the both of us now. You know, like, she probably wouldn't be doing that, but within the context of the story, I find that it works just fine, you know, and, especially given the time, that's one of those things that suspending belief going backwards is kind of suspending modern sensibility as well. And
it works for the story,
it's
though.
Impressive. Oh, yeah,
like
it does.
And
it's impressive that you don't have to do much of that in this. Like, this movie is pretty... It holds up in a way that is not, like, offensive in
like,
any
actually
category.
being there
like, yes, like
is
a
thought that I didn't have, because, but 1942, that's probably not the norm at all. Like, when...
Yeah, no.
Like, yeah, I mean, that's...
I mean, the civil rights movement isn't for 20 years. You know? Like, it's...
Wow.
It's a while away. We're still in the throes of Jim Crow era politics.
Man, it's really all the classics seem to, or just timeless movies. They just seem to you know, they seem to have it. I don't know. You know, it's just...
They've got a good head on their shoulders as to what morals are. You know, it's it seems like...
Seems to be a constant throughout all just things that are considered, wow, that's great. I don't know. But yeah, this... I mean, this is just the second stop on this project, which is crazy. You know, we are two in. I knew I was going to enjoy my first one no matter what, because it was my pick. But like, this is, I don't know. We can go I'm kind of maybe a little disappointed, and is there literally anything better? I don't think so.
That is the concern here.
We have reached peak.
I think as far as what my top 5 favorite movies are, this was probably the only one you hadn't seen. You know, like that was part of why I needed to get it in. I was like, of my top 5 favorite movies, I'm like, off the top of my head, Everything Ever Once, Titanic, this, fucking a Wes Anderson movie, and a Star Wars movie. You've seen all of those, you know, like it's, but Casablanca, you hadn't. So I was like, that is the one we gotta go on. And the other thing too is that now it influences my choices later on. I kind of wanted to take this opportunity. You know, I remember back with our 2023 ranking and our awards and stuff, we talked about Past Lives so passionately and how it kind of opened you up to romance movies. And so many of my favorite movies of all time are romance movies, but I don't know how much I want to get bogged down in only doing romance movies for mine. So it's one of those things where I'm caught up. I have an idea of what my next movie is for a couple weeks from now, but even then I'm not entirely, like, no matter where I go, we're going a step down from
definitely,
Casablanca, and that's something you got to be prepared for.
And I know next week is definitely it is. I mean, anything actually is a step down.
Yeah, no, like that's the thing is I'm hard pressed to tell you that this isn't my favorite film of all time. You know, like I watch it, and every time I watch it I feel warm. I feel good. I feel like there is.
It is like that is at the end. I did just feel so light. Like I felt just so like, oh my God. I was supposed to watch this movie. You know what I'm like? It's one of those things where it's like, we've said this a few times, but I genuinely, and again, aside from probably Titanic, it's the one I would compare closest to it, is like, this is what movies are for, you know, like this is why we make movies. This is why we tell stories through the visual medium. And I adore it, man. I don't think that there is, like, it's one of those things where I kind of keep Everything Everywhere All at Once at the top of my list, because I kind of like came out of the theater going, that's my favorite movie of all time.
But and I'm sure when I rewatch it, I'll feel that way again. But like at this second, if you ask me what my favorite movie of all time is, I'm gonna go Casablanca. You know.
Yeah. I don't blame you, and that's why every single movie that we've watched just recently, like Mad Max, is a perfect example. I think of that's what movies are for, but not
in the same way that this is what movies are for.
There's many different reasons why movies exist, and this is, I don't know, this is a different vein. This is another just a classic story that is so impactful and that is just human, but is timeless, and we're talking about it in 2024, and it has this almost the same impact as it did in 1942.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about Fury Road. Like in like that is also what movies are for. You know, like it's a great example of how versatile the medium of movies is. And like you could argue that's taking the advantages of a modern Hollywood and a modern filmmaking and going, well, now I'm going to do the craziest shit we've ever thought possible.
Let's just see what the fuck we can do.
That's Fury Road. That's Way of the Water. That's Top Gun Maverick. You know, like all of those are what movies for. You know, like that's what movies are for. But like those are obviously not Casablanca. Those aren't the same type of thing. You know, and I think that's why I fucking love film, man. That's why I love movies. And it's just there are so many examples you can point to and go, this is why we make movies. You know, this is why we make movies. This is why we make movies.
That's why there is no one favorite movie of all time. You know, that doesn't exist. And even 5 doesn't really do it. You know, it's like
no. I'm like I've
it's
talked
a starter
about this
pack
pretty much every week. Yeah, like my favorite movies ever list on Letterboxd is 300 movies long. Like that's 300. Like that's so many movies. You know, like that's
yeah.
What do you mean favorite? Like I mean, like I've watched over 1,500, over 2,000 at this point. I think.
Wow.
By now, so it's like 300's not that many of them.
No. Like it sounds like a lot at first, but then that's just how good movies can get.
When we did our top 100, you know, you got to 100 and you were like, oh,
damn,
fuck.
Yeah.
You know,
and I thought I was limited myself.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my God, I'm having to limit myself, you know. And
yeah, we're at a point now where it would be impossible to do a top 100 again. We're going to have to up that ante.
Yeah, no. I don't even want to think. Like, I don't even know, but I guess I do know. No, I do know where this does stand. This is like comfortably top 20. Like I know that for sure. But like it's top 10. Like this is like
you're like hold on a second. Yeah, like no, that's what's so special about this movie is that I don't know a single soul I could show this to and then be like, it was just okay. Like that's how good this, and like the only reason someone would feel that way is because of the classic shit you hear. I don't like black and white movies. It's too old. You know, like it's, and that sort of thing, which I get it. I've been there. I used to be there. But it's just one of those things where if you keep an open mind to what movies can give you, like you can find a Casablanca, a classic movie that has been regarded as one of the greatest of all time. And the fact that that's the case to a general audience, it's probably still underrated. Which isn't that kind of fucking nuts? Like, obviously to film people, this is an obvious, like, Casablanca is one of the greatest. But, like, I don't think my parents have ever seen Casablanca.
I don't think mine have either, yeah. I don't...
No, you know, like...
Yeah, if I had to guess, it's just that time. I don't know. Like, how do you see this unless you seek it out just in your own time?
No, it's one of those, you know? So, like, it's just fascinating that to a general audience, like, my brother would not like this movie.
Yeah.
You know? And that's an interesting idea. Like, I can't wrap my mind around not liking this movie or not being into it. It's just so obviously good to me that, like, the idea that there's anybody who would go, yeah, Casablanca's not for me, blows my fucking mind.
But those people exist.
They exist. And that's one of those things that's the beauty of film and the medium is that everybody's got their thing, everybody's got their taste. Casablanca just happens to be right the fuck up my alley.
think up a lot of people's alley. There's a reason it is considered one of the best. You know, I think that just means it's up as many people's alley as it can get. Like that's
if you don't like Casablanca, you might be a Nazi.
Like there's maybe something more going on.
No,
like if it's
I'm playing.
Yeah,
course,
I mean maybe
still,
if you don't like, let's see, is there? I don't know. I still haven't seen Ungentlemanly Like Warfare, but like I'm just trying to think of the Inglourious Bastards. You know, if you hate Inglourious Bastards, there might be a problem. I don't know, like that. Yeah. That like,
and I mean, like if you hate the story being laid out, like I get it if Tarantino's not for you.
True.
That's the thing is that like this is like Michael Curtis doesn't have like a deeply stylized form of filmmaking. Now, obviously, the black and white photography and the lighting and stuff is deeply stylized, but you know, it's not Tarantino in that like there's quick zooms and pan whips and all these sorts of things. It is relatively, I hate to call it basic filmmaking, but like it takes what we know as making movies at its most basic degree and elevates it to the highest possible level.
It's not like foundation. It's not basic. It's just the foundation.
It's foundational.
You know, it's like
yes,
it's like the gold standard kind of. It's just like, well, can you do it as good as if you're going to be basic, then you might as well be as good as Casablanca can be because that's what they did in 42. You know, so like I think
these are the sorts of things that were semi-limited by time. I mean, there's some shots in like Citizen Kane and Touch of Evil that Orson Welles pulls off that's like, what the fuck? How on earth is that possible in 1941?
I like those.
You know, like
I like those moments. I do.
And they're subtle. It's not one of those things where you'd be like, there's one in Touch of Evil that I'm like, holy shit, that's insane that they pulled this off. But like the one I'm thinking of in Citizen Kane is subtle and it's just a slow zoom out that just kind of keeps going and you're kind of like, wait, hold the fucking phone. And like, it's just like, it just keeps going from outside into a room and then to two people at a table and it goes between the people to get them in frame. And you're like, it's one of those things that like, it might not stand out to a lot of people, but like there are other people who will be like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened there? Like, how did you do that? So that's the thing is that like, it is possible to go above and beyond in a way that the camera doesn't really attempt to do in Casablanca. It is but you know, it is based off a play. It is very, you know, it's stagecraft and I think it's well edited, but it's not over edited by any stretch of the imagination. There's long takes where they let the actors act, you know, and I think that's like, there's one scene where I mean, they have like a perfect mirror for both the scenes. One where Ingrid Bergman's sitting on the couch and Humphrey Bogart's in the background and they talk and then they come back around. Like, one of my favorite shots in the movie was actually one that starts with Ingrid Bergman standing up off the couch across the room, Humphrey Bogart sitting on the couch, her walking over and sitting next to him. And as she sits down, the camera zooms in and it's a long take, a long conversation. And they end up sitting face to face and kissing by the end of the scene, where there was no cuts, and it wasn't like a huge giant oneer, you know. It wouldn't be like whoa, look at how fucking crazy this was. No, like it was subtle, it was pretty, it was well performed, and like that's
more of an acting oneer than like like that's the more impressive part there. And I think that also just really helps, like just sitting with the characters and actors longer. You get to understand their thought process and all that. And it is really like this. It's an hour and 40 minutes, but like, man, I don't like it. It did not seem like it was almost 2 hours long. Like I feel like hour 40 is just kind of also they hit the nail on the head. Like if you can make a movie in an hour 45. That's like the attention span. Yeah, exactly. Like that's boom. Like that's just another gold standard. Like another just kind of foundational thing that maybe, I don't know, was that the normal before an hour 45? I don't know, but it feels like
movies.
Yeah,
you know.
I feel like that's just a human attention span thing, maybe because I mean, 3-hour movies. The Batman, Oppenheimer. There are 3-hour movies, Dune, that I can very, very much get behind. But if they can be done in an hour or 45 minutes with the same impact and story, I mean, I'd rather take that. I mean, more time spent with the Batman. I don't know. Maybe I do like the length. I don't know.
No, it is. But every movie is its own thing. Like this movie, if it is 2.5 hours, I'm like, what do you even add? Like that's how concise this movie is.
Mm-hmm.
It is so like the backstory, the entire backstory is like 4.5 minutes. The flashback sequence where they're like, oh, here's Ilsa and him falling in love, and here's Ilsa leaving him, and that's like 5 minutes of the movie.
That is actually done relatively.
It's one, it's one little sequence in the middle of a bigger scene where he's sitting at that fucking chair sulking, and like it's not like you return to reality and you're like, oh yeah, he's sitting in this chair. Like no, you knew he was in that fucking chair remembering this.
Those were my favorite parts of the movie. Right, well, the first scene I took down was whenever. As time goes by, is first sung, like that's the first cry I had, is whenever Ilsa recommends it and says play it, and then she starts to kind of tear up, and I was just like, oh my god, I don't even know the history yet, but I assume, I was like, I kind of got the idea, that she was long, it was very...
that's one of those ones where you watch it a second time and you'll be like, oh.
So I already cried the first time without knowing the history, and then I got the history, and I'm like, oh, what a classic just falling in love montage here. That was just, and it was nice. And then like actually meaningful moment, like conversations they had of like, no questions, we agreed. And then like slowly getting to know each other a little more. I don't know, and
barely getting to know
I guess
each
true.
Other.
Honestly, maybe that's like their like the downfall of it all is that no questions were asked. But very brief, I guess, and whole different husband involved and thought he was dead. A lot of, there are moving parts, but for that time in Paris, for just that time, it's just Paris, and that's what he says at the end.
We'll always
is like,
have Paris.
Yeah, we'll always have it, and it's.
And we got it back last night.
Yeah, we didn't.
Here in Casablanca.
Yeah, we lost it for a little bit, but it's back.
We got it back.
It's back, and that, I don't know. It's a good. I feel like that's just the best and most healthy way to look at it. Is like, it was a good time in your life. You both had a great time. You might as well keep it positive and not sulk like he was. Like just to be all.
He's like, now I'm giving you a chance to go live that with this guy.
Wait a minute.
He
said he doesn't drink, but like he's like drinking a lot. Like actually.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah. I think the idea is that he doesn't drink on the clock. Like he doesn't drink here. He doesn't drink with his customers. Strasser even asks him, like, what's your nationality? And he goes, I'm a drunkard.
Okay. So it's no
Renault
surprise.
Goes, that makes him a man of the world. Which is very, very funny. It's
Rick Blaine.
I love Claude. I love Claude Rains too, the actor who plays Captain Renault. He's actually, I think, of the main cast here, probably the one I've seen the most in most stuff. Watched a few Humphrey Bogart movies. An Ingrid Bergman movie that I absolutely love is called Gaslight, which consists of pretty much exactly what you would think it is. But it was made in the 40s, so it's kind of like, wow, I didn't know that terminology was around.
Is that where it's from?
Ago.
Is that like
I'm curious. I don't know, because there's also a literal gaslight that is important to the movie. So it's like
1944. Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, because of the content of the movie, did that become known as gaslighting because it was in the movie Gaslight? I don't know.
1938, I guess, a play called Gaslight that was later adapted into
the movie.
The film. So I guess, that is...
Okay, so it is based off that. That's dope. Really good movie. Strongly recommend it, especially if you dug Ingrid Bergman in this. She's also in the Sidney Lumet Murder on the Orient Express. That was in like the 70s though, so she's a talent.
Oh wow, okay, long spanning then. Yeah, she's got Notorious and Spellbound, I guess, are her other known ones for the time. 45 and 46.
Like Spellbound, I've heard a lot of really good things about. I've just never seen it. But with Humphrey Bogart, I watched The Barefoot Contessa, which is also very strong. Not nearly as good as this, but he really anchors it. And that's a few years after this. I've always heard The African Queen is a good one. I've never watched that. But Claude Rains, he plays a really fun character in The Wolfman, and he's in The Invisible Man. He was very heavily involved in like the Universal horror films, like the monster movies that originally happened. So like
he does kind of feel like he has a menacing. If he wanted to be menacing, he could be kind of like that. But I mean he's a talented actor and definitely one that he was in Notorious with Ingrid Bergman actually. I'm trying to remember. I feel like there's one more that I saw him in. And I cannot remember what it was off the top of my head. Maybe it was just Wolfman. Like I remember watching it and being like, "Holy shit!" A Lonely Place, To Have and Have Not. Renault.
No, I think it was just the Wolfman, and the Invisible Man.
Let's see.
But,
did the Kansas City Film Critics Circle Award even exist at this time? I don't know. We didn't give it anything if it did, which is blasphemy. But I'm just going to go with that. I don't think it existed in 1940-something.
Ingrid Bergman was snubbed. No nominee.
What?
Claude Rains was nominated, and Humphrey Bogart was nominated, but no Ingrid Bergman. But it did win Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture, which I can agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
On all of the above.
Yeah, we're firing on all cylinders here. Yeah, this was just the movie. It feel like this is if I needed to define movies in one, and I can just point to one, I think I just point
the movie.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Is there another movie to you that feels more movie than Casablanca?
I'm like literally Casablanca. Like I kept coming back to Titanic. Titanic is the only other one I would be like, ooh, that's as much a movie.
You got a love story and a tragedy rolled into one, and you can only do that, capture that. I like that. I like Titanic. That's a really good. And they know how to shoot
romance
women.
Is kind of quintessential. Man. Yeah, romance is kind of a quintessential film thing for me, and storytelling thing, just in general. I feel like any story can be elevated by a quality romance. It's like there are very few stories that feel like they couldn't benefit from a good romance in them. And Casablanca and Titanic just happen to be two of my 3 favorite movies of all time. So... that is what it is, but
makes sense. It tracks.
Indeed.
It does track.
Is that it? Do we think we're good? I don't think I gave my shot officially. It was just one of those ones that I remember watching for the first time, being like, "Oh, sick! Love that!" It's whenever Renault and Rick go up to his office because somebody just won $20,000. And they were like, "Oh, what the fuck, man?" Like, Rick's like, "What happened there?" And he's like, "I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, I know it's not supposed to happen like that." And he's like, "No, it's okay. Shit happens. Sometimes people win. Even we can't guess the odds sometimes." But they get up there, and he gets into a safe. And I love that they don't show us him getting into a safe because it's private. But they show like a really sharp silhouetted shadow on the wall as Renault is like standing there facing the same direction, and it's like, oh, it's fucking awesome. Just one of those ones where I go, oh, it's just like, I remember it stood out really strong on my first viewing, so I always get really excited for it in every single watch I've done after that. So that's why it's my favorite shot, is because it was my favorite shot the first time I watched it.
Yeah, I mean, there were many times.
But like you said, the visuals in this movie are fucking bonkers.
Yeah. If I wasn't distracted by the performances or the good writing or everything else, and then I could just sit back and be like, appreciate the nice shot that happened. There's a lot of things that don't have to happen for me to appreciate a shot on this first watch, because my brain is, I was trying to take it all in. But yeah, I mean, just every time, like, I don't know how, I think you're right. Like, there is 2 shining examples of how to shoot women in cinema history. Like, and there's more. There's probably more out there.
Sure.
But two that we can point to here. Yeah, I mean this. Just the
Ingrid Bergman and Kate Winslet, they had it figured the fuck out.
And it's not like she was always crying. Her eyes were just always so shiny. Like, even when she wasn't crying. And it just, I don't know why, but it added so well. But then when she was crying too, like, oh, I don't know, just a tracking, just a shot that stays on her face and a tear goes down her face was...
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if anybody can see that, but like, yeah, there's like a tear rolling down her cheek in that, and it's like, dude, fucking incredible. I was on my walk this morning, and while you were watching the movie, and I was on a website that I fan caps, which shows like frame by frame movies.
Mm-hmm.
I was saving whatever shots stood out. I saved 54 fucking frames.
Yeah. And that's
like it's
probably
it's
conservative,
bonkers.
Even.
Yes, there were times where I was like, I need to get moving. Like I was like, that's great though. But it was. There are so many moments that just like lighting wise, like even before she walks into the bar that night, whenever it's just him sitting alone in the lonely room, or.
And just the decoration, just the everything, the set design, their costumes.
The introductory shot of Rick, where they're not showing his face yet, and he like puts out his cigarette on the side, and he's got a glass next to him, and just that, it hasn't even gone up to his face yet, and just like what they're showing here is beautifully set up and beautifully shot. The way the glass is like shimmering and shining with the lighting coming off of it, like it's just this is cinema to me. This is fucking movies.
This I get, and I'm behind. In The Godfather, I just couldn't quite say that. I understand it fully.
Oh, I get it.
And I'm there. And like not to say I didn't have a good time either. It was great, and it is a good movie for that. But like I'm like fully behind. This is, I can just comfortably.
One of my favorite films of all time, and there's no doubt
Casablanca,
about it.
White House.
I'm with it. Yeah, White House, yeah. Rick's Cafe.
Is it just the literal because it's white, or like is there something deeper there?
I mean, I suppose, like, why is it set in Casablanca? I mean, like, that is the name of the city, so it's like,
yeah. Is that is it a real city?
Yeah,
like
Casablanca
and
exists,
geographically, like it is on the way.
That
and
location,
you would have to.
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So okay, I just didn't know if they were trying to go on
Rick's Place,
something there.
I don't know.
But yeah, okay.
One of the funny inconsistencies in the script. One of the only inconsistencies in the script. That's just like a fun little detail to notice. I didn't notice it until last night, and I've watched it 4 or 5 times. The first time Renault and Rick sit down by themselves, Renault asks, what on earth brought you to Casablanca? And he's like, I came here for the waters. And he goes, the waters? We're in the middle of the desert. And Rick goes, I was misinformed. And then whenever Sam is trying to console Rick, he goes, come on, let's just get in the car and drive. We can go fishing. We can do this.
Okay. Yeah. Desert.
Which, geographically, Casablanca is on the shore. There is water. So, like, it's one of those funny things where, like, Renault is like, I think they're being, it's Africa, it's close to Egypt, it's Morocco, like, we're in the desert. Like, what do you mean waters? Like, there is water, but like waters, I think is kind of like, but yeah, so that's one of the small inconsistencies.
He said for his health, he came for the water. What is, is that like what? The fluoride in the water? What was it? What did I just watch? Actually, that had a guy. Oh, Dr. Strangelove. That's right. Is they're putting fluoride? They're putting fluoride in the water or whatever. Is that what he means? That he's getting away from the American water, or like that these are just healing?
I think he's being, just like for my health.
Okay,
like, it's kind of an answer that's not an answer.
I see. Okay, because I didn't.
Dr. Strangelove is a fucking fantastic movie.
Yeah. I forgot. That's 60s, right?
62, I believe.
Okay.
64?
64.
64.
Okay. Yeah, another black and white one there, I guess, right? Is that the whole time? Yeah. So I mean, we're still in that era. When is color?
Well, color film
like that's
is
before.
well established.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, The Wizard of Oz came out a few years before this. So, like, color film is an option.
Not the norm yet.
It was
and not
immensely
cheap
more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It cost so much to get your movies. In fact, the first movie that was in color for Warner Brothers was actually directed by Michael Curtiz, the same director of this, The Adventures of Robin Hood. That was the first color film for Warner Brothers. And the same guy who directed this directed that.
Okay, they trusted him.
So that's a fun little fact.
Yeah. Makes this dude's got it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know of a single thing I can really like. I was thinking, I'm like, we did say it's wrong to give a 10 critically. That we are. It's impossible. But
this is as close to a perfect movie as you can get.
This would be the one movie I could hear it out for.
Right. Like that's insane. That's insane. Like that's how quality the movie is. And I think that like literally the only like if we're getting technical, like the little imperfections, the small things, like that inconsistency in the script, like that's not enough to be like it's not a good movie or anything, but like
I guess it's not perfect.
It's technically not perfect, it's one of those. So it's like,
dang it. Yeah, but it's it is the standard. Like this is the movie.
This is movies. This is movies to me. Yeah, no.
But I guess I don't know, I'm jumping the gun there a little bit.
Yeah, we will rate this movie. Mm-hmm. We will rate this movie. First, we're going to do the plugs, and after the plugs, we will rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10. Joseph will announce what movie we will be covering next Friday. I am so excited to find out what it is. And then we will be doing Album of the Week. It is that time again. So very ready. But in the meantime, if you would, head to patreon.com/pennybloompod, where you'll find over 100 hours of exclusive content, all sorts of book reviews, comic book reviews, movie reviews, and early access content. For $1.50 a month, you can support this podcast financially, which is huge because it costs me money and I don't make any off of it unless it's over there. Head to Twitter, follow @PennyBloomPod, follow on Instagram and TikTok @PennyBloomPodcast. Remember to leave a 5-star rate and review wherever it is you might be listening, and continue to download. That is a huge help. Makes me feel good. It's the only metric I can actually keep track of, so definitely helpful if you download things. Let's see. Head to YouTube. You can watch us there. I have Casablanca on display here, my little DVD of it. I've got the Good Kid, Mad City vinyl up. It's a good time over here. Kendrick's birthday's in 3 days. So gotta have it. Release date wise.
Okay.
Yes. Not 3 days from today as of recording. 3 days from when we release. And in 2 days, it's Tupac's birthday. So that's a fun little fun fact. Yeah. Watch on YouTube if you want to. Look up Penny Bloom Podcast. We're there. But let's rate this thing. 10, 9.75? Done? Cool?
I mean, I'm at a 10 enjoyment. Yeah, I'm not. I don't. Yeah. That's good. On my personal enjoyment, I even threw that in there. If we are doing that, and then the other number I threw in was a 9.75 for critical because I can't give a 10 critical. So
yeah.
I don't. Is there? I mean, that is both of our score. I feel like if we could give a 10 critically, we would.
This is the closest I've ever felt a movie has come to being perfect. Mm-hmm. And I think that, we can, I'll happily say that aloud, but
funny,
the principle of a 10 out of 10, nothing wrong at all. There's always a way to make it better. There's always something to improve.
Technically an 80 or a 98.33, on our scale with all the average, and that puts it, 15%. Is that right? Yeah. 15% above Tron, which I probably don't agree with that, Is this just 15% better than Tron? No. But
only 15%?
So yeah, that, but I think that's funny to compare it like that, but on this scale, there's no.
If 15%'s a big chunk, that's no joke. That's the difference between a B- and an A+.
That is true, and maybe you know, okay.
Like that's
so it is a bigger gap,
big shift.
But yeah, I don't feel like we're gonna peak any higher than this, because like even my next movie, like it's nowhere near the critical acclaim or anything even close to Casablanca. Like, it is just a movie in which it involves an actor that I love a whole lot, and it's a movie that you haven't gotten to. It's one that I haven't actually, like, I watched not too long. I haven't sat down to watch the whole thing, and I need to do it because I claim it to be one of my favorites of his. And it's Denzel Washington. It is The Book of Eli. So yeah, so like very unknown movie. This isn't the Casablanca. I'm not picking one that's known to be good. If anything, I feel like this is very unknown and very underrated. Because every time I've watched it, I have enjoyed it. And I'm curious on a revisit now in the stage of the life I am in. It's kind of interesting for me. And it's Denzel, so I feel like how bad can it really get? You got Mila Kunis in there, Gary Oldman as well. Honestly, Gary Oldman might be my is a sleeper for performance. I think he actually won something for that's the award that came out of this movie was Gary Oldman in his supporting role. But yeah, I'm excited. The Book of Eli. So
that was one of my guesses.
Yeah, I assumed, and that's why I wanted to get it out of the way early. Is I felt like this one it felt like it was up on the on deck.
Now, these were Tron Legacy and the Book of Eli are the two primary ones that you talk about that I've never seen. So I'm excited. I'm very excited to watch the Book of Eli. I love Denzel, so fuck yeah. Next Friday, come on back to Cinema Surprise, where you will find us covering the Book of Eli. And I'm very excited for it, like I said. And, after that episode, the Book of Eli, we'll discuss it. It'll conclude, and I will announce what we're talking the week after. And it's just going to keep going for as long as we want. But beyond that, on our flagship show, the Penny Bloom Podcast, find us next Monday for the House of the Dragon Season 2 premiere. Fire and Bloom has returned. We are back in the thick of it, baby. It's time for more Thrones. We covered Season 1. We covered the entirety of Game of Thrones in between Season 1 and 2. And now it's time for Season 2. We're fucking ready. Let's fucking do this. So, if you're a House of the Dragon fan, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, stick with us. Fire and Bloom on Monday, then come on back to Cinema Surprise next Friday for the Book of Eli. It is now time for the Album of the Week. Where are you sitting, buddy?
All right. Well, this is a kind of I needed to get this guy just out of the way so that I have no reason to ever return and give him an Album of the Week. But I needed to get Cuddy up in here somewhere, just for my own sake. I have Tron in there, and I know this is supposed to expand my own horizons, and I've listened to these albums quite a lot. I tried to listen to Speeding Bullet to Heaven, and I really wanted that to be my pick. I couldn't. I couldn't get there. So there is an album that it doesn't get to me, but the one that I'll do is Pain, Passion, and Demon Slaying. I feel like and for Cuddy, like for the Book of Eli, I feel like it goes well. Just because I feel like this is his most underrated album that I don't understand why. And Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying. I think I said Pain, Passion. I always flip them. Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying. Sorry, but 2016. One of my favorites is this Kitchen. I don't know why. It's just very, very orchestra heavy. There's a lot of violin, it feels like, and it's the song that made me randomly. I think I was watching Sherlock along the same time, and Sherlock played the violin. It got me to just be hooked on the violin for whatever. But I don't know. This is Rose Golden. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot about that. I should have mentioned that one first. That's like my jam on the song, and it's Willow Smith, like of all people. Yeah. And I tell people that, and they're like, "Wait, what? This is like I whip my hair back and forth," is what she was known for. Like that song, like at the time, like that's all that she was known for. And then
Willow makes good.
Oh my god,
music.
Yeah, and like they've come back to like make tracks together, and like him and Jaden have a really good relationship. It's like, I don't know, it is really nice. But Rose Golden is probably my track that I'd go to on this album. But I don't know, Cudi, I have every track added, and that's not. I don't actually have that for all of his other albums. Even on some of the Man on the Moons, I have specific tracks that I leave off. This is one that I have every single track added, and I do listen to.
That's a special album. I'll never forget. I have a fun memory associated with this album, so I can go on it for a little bit. I think it was the inaugural Friendsgiving. It was the first Friendsgiving. We were in the drive-thru of Jack in the Box. Fucking fried so high. And I remember sitting in the backseat. I can't remember if I was next to you. That's the part I can't remember. I think we were in your car, so you were probably driving.
I was probably driving at this point. Yeah, I think.
But I was in the backseat, and it was back when smoking was a novelty. It was back when it was like we didn't get to do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when we did it, it was like special. It was so much fun. It felt so great. It was a whole other world back then. And I just remember sitting in the back seat as I think By Design is playing with Andre 3000. And I remember just the warmth creeping up from the bottom of my feet up to my head and being like, and just like sinking into the seat like, yep, this is going to be the best night of my life.
That's a good memory. That's a great memory.
No, it is. And a great one with Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying. Love me some Cudi, love me some Andre 3000. So that's one of my favorite songs from it. And I love that album. And I'm going modern rap as well. Like I mentioned, Kendrick Lamar's birthday's here in a couple days, so I wanted to shine a light on the album that I've been listening to the most this year, which is Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. One that when it came out a couple years ago, I wasn't like the highest on. I mean, we're talking about Kendrick Lamar. That was his first album since Damn, solo album. You know, he'd done the Black Panther soundtrack and stuff, but you know, it was his first solo album since Damn. I fucking loved Damn. I fucking loved Good Kid, Mad City. I fucking loved To Pimp a Butterfly. So he was on an unreal streak. And Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers didn't quite sit with me exactly how I wanted it to. It was a long wait for what I felt wasn't a huge payoff. But I'm here to tell you, I was completely wrong. I go back and listen to this religiously. This is one that I have every song liked on. And it's one of those ones where you wouldn't fucking think that. Like, it's just, he is such a talented performer and a talented writer and a talented artist that getting that personal on a record and that degree of storytelling, I mean, he's achieved it before. He's done it with Good Kid, Mad City. I felt like, and To Pimp a Butterfly, and Damn, frankly. Like, that's just something he's always so good at, is being so personal and taking that personal experience and making it universally important and implicating. And I think that Mr. Morale was his most, quote-unquote, selfish album yet. He did exactly what he wanted to do with no intent of pleasing anybody. And he pleased me. I listen to this every couple weeks. That's kind of how I spend Mr. Morale.
The general perception is that this is like a flop, or that this is his flop. And like it is in 95, like in 95, dude, like actually just goes. Like Crown is one of my one of my favorite just Kendrick songs. Actually, I don't know, like heavy is the head that wears the crown. Like it's and through all of this,
Father Time, like there's so much good stuff on.
I think what it made me realize is that like it's maybe the argument we had for why movies are made. You know, why is music made? You can't have the music that is just good and catchy to listen to, and that's fine. It has its place. Good. It is still art. But there's a whole different world where it can be music that you can connect to. That there is an actual connection, and it might not be the same exact story that Kendrick's telling, but it's a story in your life that relates in some way, and you have a connection to that song and then that artist. And it helps whenever they're a good moral person as well. Like that's just, that is and that is a connection that you can't just have to like a club banger. You can.
Yeah. No, and I mean, like, he's obviously had a huge year, but it was one of those ones that I just needed. I needed to get in here. A kind of a similar vein as you. I was like, I wanted a Kendrick album at some point. Let's go ahead and do it.
Now
Let's go ahead and do it this week.
It's done. It's off.
It is. It's there, and that's that. And man, I fucking love. I won't lie. Like, it's one that it's a little controversial, and I understand why. Auntie Diaries, one of my favorite songs ever. It made me cry the first time I listened to it. And I completely understand and respect anybody who is a part of the queer community who feels he could have made his point in a different way. I completely understand. I do. But I think that taking that personal experience and molding it and telling the story of acceptance and love and how he loves his aunt and he loves his cousin and he loves them, and it was a learned thing. It wasn't something that he was brought up thinking. It wasn't something he was brought up being like, oh yeah, well that's fine. Like, no, it was something that, and I think that's something that a lot of the audience needs to hear, that like, even if this isn't what you think life is, this is what life is. This is real shit. These are real people. It's not a choice. They're living their truth, and you love them all the same. Fuck the hate. And I love that he got on a track on a rap album as one of the greatest rap artists in the world in a community that is frivolent with homophobia and transphobia. And I mean, like, that's been a great, that was evident in the Drake beef earlier. Like, one of the main things that people were like, Metro and them would go at Drake for was that, like, when can I bleed him yet? Can I bleed him? Bet, when you stand by Sexy Red, I believe you see two bad bitches, like that's, I don't think that's a bad thing, but like, that's one of those things where like, it's even a dude like this who has made songs about acceptance and love and all this stuff can, in the culture of hip hop, go back on that sort of thing and get wrapped up in the homophobic nature of a lot of the, like, one of my favorite DMX songs of all time, I can like hardly listen to because he says something like a few bars in where I'm like, fuck, god damn, like, it's just, that's just been the culture for so long. And the fact that he hopped on a track on his album years in the making, 5 years, and made a song like Auntie Diaries just moved me very deeply. So I love Auntie Diaries. I love Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. And with Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying and Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, I feel like we got a good duo this week in albums.
I like that. Yeah, I can get behind that. Two underrated, yes, definitely underappreciated versions or albums of them. If you like this album of either of the artists, you will like their other stuff. I think that's to say is like,
that is,
if you like this album, you will love their other stuff. And
that is certain. Yes.
Yeah. I think people probably have been exposed to Kendrick. I think that it's like they'd probably know about To Pimp a Butterfly and Damn, like those albums are known. But Cudi, if you've never heard of him and you like this album, you will like his other stuff. I promise you. So,
dude, Man on the Moon is always going to be the special one.
So I feel like I shouldn't have.
I remember watching. No, I get
like Given Man on the Moon. It's too people know those, right? Like that.
No, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
no. Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying was that's why I didn't say Good Kid, Mad City. That's why I didn't say To Pimp a Butterfly. That's why I didn't say like that's why I went Mr. Morale. It's the underappreciated one from Kendrick's cat. I mean, not to mention Section 80. That's probably the actual most underappreciated from his catalog and absolutely fucking incredible. Also, by the way, if you like Kendrick, you'll like any of his shit. Like, I can't imagine you being like, oh, well, this album just didn't work for me. Like, that's Kendrick Lamar doing Kendrick Lamar shit. It's all fucking good, at least to me. But, yeah, then with that, we will conclude this episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast. And like I said, we'll be back next week with the Book of Eli. I'm so very excited. We'll have another album of the week for you, and I'll have another announcement as to what movie's coming the next week. So come on back. With that, I was Colton Robertson. I was joined by Joseph George. Thank you very much, homie.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it's always a pleasure to have you. Remember, peace, love, and bloom. And here's looking at you, kid.